got huge news right now. Gervonta Davis, allegedly, reportedly, will be fighting Jake Paul in an exhibition bout on Netflix in November. It's not fully confirmed yet, but when Netflix is sharing it and the Ring is sharing it, it seems like that's where we're headed. In addition to Gervonta, having Jake at that fight with Lamont Roach, there's been smoke around this fire for a minute. So it looks like it's going to be Gervonta and Jake. I just want to get a couple things out there and then let you unleash, Raheem, as you are one to do. I had a tweet where I said, let me read my own tweet. I said, hey, everyone's doing their part to kill the sport of boxing. All hands on deck, right? And what I mean by that is right off of Top Rank fumbling a deal with the worldwide leader in sports where their contract was not renewed, which officially put an end to boxing on American network television. Not the end of the world with streaming taking over cable anyways, but that Top Rank, they did their part, right? They served up enough consistent Top Rank slop that ESPN said, we're good. And then Eddie Hearn, who has sold out most of his company to Turkey Al-Sheikh and to Riyadh Season, one of the few guys he's kept away from them because he knows he's a jewel in his crown is Jaron Boots Ennis. So what has Eddie got lined up with him? Fighting a guy named Lima that you probably have never heard of, Raheem. So, Eddie Hearn, between selling out to the Saudis and keeping his one valuable American gem and matching him against nobody and turning down some of the biggest fights, Eddie's done his part. But then PBC said, not so quickly. We got to have our fun, too, in the midst of all this. They go ahead and make this exhibition, it would seem. So rather than Gervonta Davis having a rematch with Lamont Roach, rather than Gervonta Davis fighting Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, guys that have now moved up, Devin Haney and Keyshawn and Tio, he's going to do this instead. And, this, of course, was started by Floyd Mayweather. And Floyd this is as much a part. I've been trying to say this to people for a couple years now, that the sport that Floyd Mayweather left behind is as much a part of his legacy as the brilliant record and career that he left behind. It's about 50-50. And this is the pie in the sky dream for this is the philosophy Gervonta was brought up on and sold to him by Floyd and people around Floyd, the PBC. You could make a shit ton of money for a shit fight. It's almost like they take pride in that, in getting more money out of the alleged easier opposition than eating what you're worth fighting the best fighters in the world. And all of this has been a race to the bottom, fighters. And this is part of the culture that we have because, once upon a time, boxing is the ultimate microcosm. It was the ultimate microcosm of America's fight with Nazi Germany when Joe Louis knocked out Max Schmeling. It was the ultimate microcosm of the civil rights movement when Muhammad Ali had to lose the title for 3.5 years and then fight Joe Frazier to try to regain it back. And now it's the ultimate microcosm of American society. Everybody is selling out, and it's all okay as long as you get the bag. Never mind that said bag is losing its value on a global scale every day. What are you even selling out for as we go along here, potentially? But there's been this culture brought about. I'll mention 5 names. Jay-Z, Triple H, LeBron James, Floyd Mayweather, and Tom Brady have all sold us this culture of, as long as it ends in a win and being a winner and getting the bag and getting the W, all else be damned. Tom Brady means getting another Super Bowl because he's a winner, and on and on and on. I know I'm going all over the place here, but this is in the face of the Saudis taking everything over and the Ali Act being subverted so it can be taken into TKO's hands and Ari Emanuel and all those guys. This is intellectual. I said around the Pacquiao fight for PBC, that was intellectual and creative bankruptcy. The Saudis are coming. They're taking over everything. What's the best we can muster? Maybe we can get Pacquiao out of retirement. Same thing's going on. The Saudis are coming. We got to get Benavidez because we got nothing for Benavidez. We got to put Benavidez on their card. What's the best we can come up with? And it's maybe we could make Jake Paul in an exhibition with Gervonta Davis. It's also Gervonta Davis letting everyone know once and for all, if you had any shred of hope or ambition for me being the best fighter in the world, or being the best lightweight in the world, or being the best fighter I can be, my potential, just forget about it. It's about the bag, and that's it, and that's all. And funny enough, I know it's an exhibition, but if they fight at all, I might favor Jake Paul because they make weight classes for a reason. Because Gervonta Davis is about 5'4", 5'5", and Jake Paul's about 6'1", and walks around at 200 pounds and has built himself into a decent enough boxer that with those 60 to 70 pound advantage, he might win whatever amounts to a fight between these two. And then how would you feel? You were so worried about risking a loss to Devin Haney or Keyshawn Davis or Shakur Stevenson that you may wind up losing to Jake Paul, which is way more embarrassing than any of that. But it doesn't matter because everyone's making the money. And that's why in my tweet, Raheem, I said everyone's doing their part to kill the sport of boxing. I didn't say the business, right? Because this is going to do huge business. This is going to do more numbers than Canelo Crawford. And I see people arguing about that. And that's why I say right now in boxing, it's a race to the bottom. And I have a lot more to say, but I got to let Raheem cook.
Everyone who just sat through that, as I have sat next to Sean, figuratively and literally for over a decade, this is what actual purest heart sounds like when it comes through the chest, up the throat, and out the mouth. This is what it sounds like when you have someone in front of you who is so passionate purely about the sport of boxing that these things hurt him to his core. I'm so glad that you kept going because there were a couple of times in there I was chuckling and I was trying not to let it come out because I didn't want you to feel like I was disrespecting what you were saying or minimizing your very impassioned plea, not just to Gervonta Davis and Jake Paul, but to the world at large. You're right in when you say that boxing really is a marker of where the world is. And this clearly demonstrates for you what is wrong with the world at large. So those of you who might think that Sean is a bit over the top with this, it's because it signals to him something that is wrong with the entire world. And when boxing's not right, the world is wrong. You understand? This is something that you should all ascribe to and aspire to in the comments. All your stupid ass comments about who's this and that. This is your goal. What you see right there, that's who you want to be. If it's not about boxing, make it about something that you love. But love something that much to where when it's wrong, the whole world needs to be righted. This is what you're hearing, and I understand it. I feel it. I had to experience and get over it when I saw Floyd Mayweather fight Conor McGregor on the record, not an exhibition, to contribute to his record-breaking career of 50-0. The fact that that still stands as part of that record is a stone in my shoe. I understand why you're so hurt, Sean. I get it. It's not Gervonta's fault. It's not Jake's fault. It's the world's fault, and they are the tumor and the cancer that plagues this great nation and the world at large. I understand that feeling. That said, I'm much more easily able to metabolize this news because I've already been heartbroken, bro. I've already become jaded. I'm already cynical. The fucking Mayweather McGregor shit did it for me. I'll never be the same. I'll never be the same. It's over. Like, there was a moment in the build-up to Conor Ben and Eubank Jr. where Eubank said, "You're a bad guy now, man. I got to live my life this way. Welcome to being a bad guy. You're never going to be a good guy again." Sean, it's over. You're never going to be the same. Your heart is now broken, and it won't be mended. It's not going to – this fight's going to happen. People, you're right. It's going to do better numbers than Crawford and Canelo, which on its face is a bit of a farce, and we had to get used to the idea and say that it was okay. And even though Benavidez is not getting a shot against Canelo, we've all warmed to the idea now that this Canelo Crawford is happening, and we're all into it, and we're asking questions about it. And nobody's even saying anymore that Benavidez got, shook out of his opportunity, or that Bud should be fighting the people in his own weight division, or chasing something that makes more sense because boxing has weight divisions for a reason. We're not even saying that anymore. They've beaten us over the head with it. They've stacked the whole week. They've made enough fucking noise with Dana White and TKO to just paper over all the things that when we first heard it, were offended by. And now this is just a bridge even further. And as much as it hurts now, I guarantee you by November, it'll scab over. And it'll itch. Every time somebody picks or pokes the scab, it'll hurt, and it'll itch almost 24/7, but it ain't going to be an open wound. I'm accepting it. And here's why. And here's where I had to draw the line with Mayweather and McGregor. This is an exhibition, okay? That fight wasn't, and that's why I'll never, ever get over it. The problem that you're having is, while this is an exhibition, it's a real fight that the world and the culture is in. Real versus fugazi, money grab versus substance. Are we chasing greatness, or are we just chasing the bag at all costs? That's a greater discussion that must be had, that this fight demonstrates as an issue. And where you come down on that equation, one to the next might differ. I think it probably will differ on generationally. But if I'm looking at this fight as an isolated event, for what it brings to the table as an exhibition, I can't any longer scoff at these things. Because where is Tank Davis going to get more, easier money for less effort? Nowhere. Is he focused right now? Clearly not. I mean, fortunately for him, this legal business isn't going forward. That's a whole nother discussion. But he's not going to be facing a trial. He's not going to be worried about jail time and court appearances. But to even be in that predicament in the first place, you're a bit unfocused. We saw his performance against Lamont Roach. Credit to Lamont Roach, but was that a focused, ready, trained, zeroed in, dialed in Tank Davis that Roach was fighting? If it was, then he might have finally gotten to the place where he's met competition that can really challenge him. And if Roach can really challenge him at his best in that moment, then what is Shakur going to do to him? What is, anybody at 140 potentially going to do to him? There is a moment in a guy's life where he has to admit to himself, you know what? I'm not giving 100% right now. I'm not focused on my shit. I need to get my things together. And then something might come through the door that's a windfall. I'm sure he sees this. And this was already planned before the Roach fight. Don't forget. So he was already he had 1 foot out of the door of boxing and into business before the Roach fight. The Roach fight was just supposed to be,
a gimme.
Housekeeping. Just supposed to be a placekeeper. And we all know, who've been around boxing long enough, that those placekeepers are the most dangerous fights of all. But right now, it's the biggest, easiest bag that Tank Davis can get, and he can put in fucking 40% effort. And we've already seen this fight. Let me tell you what, the genius of the Pauls, as much as that's going to bring up a lump in your throat because you want to vomit in your mouth, the genius of the Pauls, this guy does not miss a beat. Everybody was saying, well, you're fighting Tyson. Fight somebody younger. Fight somebody your age. Because before they were fighting Tyson, it's like, fight somebody who's your own weight. Well, fight somebody who's your age. Okay, well, Chavez. Everybody's like, oh, Chavez. Okay, well, fight somebody in their prime. Okay, well, how about Tank Davis? His fucking prime. He is a fucking magician, because
he's a wizard. Sleight of hand.
One of those things.
Anthony Joshua.
Now,
exhibition with Tank.
Now,
Zurdo Ramirez, first title fight. Exhibition with Tank.
Yes. And we cannot say that he did not genuinely pursue Joshua and he did not genuinely pursue Canelo. I don't have any evidence to say that those fights were not genuinely pursued by Jake Paul and that those fights didn't happen because of something on the other side of the table. That is not the fault of Jake Paul. However, the fights, to your point, that ultimately get taken, boy, they check one of these boxes at a time, and he'll immediately say, when the criticism comes, he'll be like, oh, I thought you wanted me to fight somebody in their prime. This guy is undefeated. This guy's a knockout artist. He's one of the best in the world, and now that's not good enough for you either. He's the kind of person that you'd hate to be in a romantic relationship with because you'd have to kill him. You'd have
He's a
to drive you
narcissist.
absolutely crazy.
He's
Because
a
it's argued.
narcissist. He's always the victim, one way or the other. It's always he's always the victim, and
He,
everybody else is wrong and out to get him. And
he'd
how dare
say,
they not just celebrate all the wonderfulness he's executing before the world?
exactly. He'd say we're all always the victim. He's the gaslighter in that respect. But at the same time, part of being a prize fighter, and that does not denote a traditional boxer. It's just fighting for a prize, which is part carnival, which is part circus, which is part carnival barker, is being something of a bullshit artist. You know, you got to sell the fight. Who is a better bullshit artist in the history of boxing than Don King? Doesn't mean he didn't have legitimate fights, but he also had some crazy shit go on that he would justify by spinning the yarn of bullshit. Well, this is not actually a bullshit fight so much as it is an excellent exhibition. That's what they're going to have. And if I'm honest, I do want to see it because I don't know what to expect. The weight differential where Tank is mentally, I do think that it's going to be legit. I don't think Tank is in a place where he's going to go in there and fold up or sign a contract to say he'll lose. I don't think Jake Paul wants to lose, so he's going to be fighting the best he can, but we've seen it before. The reason he knows it's okay is because his brother already did it with Mayweather. And what is Mayweather if not Gervonta Davis's prototype? Gervonta Davis wants to be the richest man in boxing. He started out under the tutelage of Mayweather in that respect. He started out in Mayweather Promotions. He's the guy that is most closely associated with walking in Mayweather's shoes, directing his career the way Mayweather initially in the beginning of his career said he should do. And then he's pursued being the biggest pay-per-view and the biggest bag getter in the sport. That is where his priorities lie. And along those lines, he's doing exactly what he should do. That's what we're looking at. Mayweather Paul already happened. This is that in its next form. These brothers know what the fuck they're doing. You're going to see maybe Jake Paul lands one big sweeping hook or some over the fucking head bolo shot, or God forbid somehow knocks down the 140-pound dripping wet Tank Davis. All he needs is a highlight. It won't matter that he lost on the cards. Tank's not going to hurt him. Tank's not going to knock him out. Tank's going to fucking touch him. Tank's going to hit him. But he's so fucking small, dude. His arms are going to be so short. He's going to... And Jake knows enough now about boxing to not just get pummeled by a super tiny guy. He'll know how to block himself. It'll look like we've seen this fight before. And you know what happened? The fight, while it took something away from Mayweather because Mayweather couldn't knock him out, which people wildly expected him to do, it also didn't take much from Mayweather. It was just like, all right, fine. He beat him, whatever. And Logan Paul still brags about that fight, brags about that loss. That's what we're going to see again.
Well, a few things. I think I've long maintained for the last couple of years that I think behind the scenes, there was a lot of pressure put on Floyd Mayweather to fight Jake Paul because with PBC and that side beginning to struggle as the years went on, Floyd Mayweather was always this windfall of cash, always this guaranteed thing. And I just suspect because Jake was fighting at Showtime for a period of time, he had the Woodley fights and the Silva fight on there. I think they tried to, and I think this is just my speculation. That's why you saw Floyd take 5 or 6 exhibitions overseas, to make up the difference he could make with one Jake Paul fight, because Floyd came out of that exhibition fight with Logan, and he was a little shook up in the post-fight. Remember, he said, my body can't do this anymore. And I think that is part of why you never saw the Jake Paul Floyd fight, and now you're seeing it with Gervonta, and Gervonta doesn't throw a lot of punches per round, and he's so much smaller that this is going to be a more difficult fight for him than I think people think. But beyond that, you said how, like I might have a lump in my throat or be disgusted at the thought of how genius Jake and Logan are marketers. I really don't, Raheem, because I see through it. So there's nothing for me to be so infuriated by. I mean, I get it. I come off infuriated and all. But to sum it up, it's not that they're so smart. They're so smart against an increasingly dumbed down society. You get what I mean? Like to say they're marketing geniuses, yeah, over what kind of public with what kind of tastes? Yes, they're a genius at manipulating those
No
people.
man,
But
Sean, has ever gone broke underestimating the intelligence of the general public. That is not one of mine, but boy, it's one of my favorite quotes. They are giving the people what they want. I don't know that there was ever an era where people were so smart that they didn't want some kind of nonsense delivered. And you have to admit that while if you're looking at this from a boxing standpoint, if this were somehow a sanctioned bout, I would be much, much, much closer to where you are with it. But the fact that it is an exhibition, you have to just accept that this will be such a curious spectacle that by the time it happens, we will have talked so much about what is possibly going to happen that we will all be fucking dialed in and on the edge of our seats to find out what actually does happen. I can't figure in my mind when I visualize it, all I see is Mayweather, Logan Paul. That's what I'm expecting. To your point, yes, Mayweather was much older than Gervonta is now. He's a way different part of his career. But I would say that the difference in skill level between Logan and Jake make up the difference in age between Mayweather and Tank. And because these two are closer, and Jake and Mayweather were further in skill wise and experience as far as what was able to bring to the ring, then it's kind of the same challenge. It was just as much as it was a difficult fight for Mayweather, it can be in respects a difficult fight for Tank because he's going to be dealing with a live dog who's young, who has been actively fighting, who's much bigger than him, will be able to cover up, who will be able to touch him occasionally with shots, but he will, I believe, just outperform Jake Paul in every fashion except power. And he won't be able, I don't think, to hurt Jake. And I think Jake is going to land some highlight punches. And that's going to be it. I don't think the fix is in, though. I don't think they're agreeing to shit. I don't think they need to because, again, Logan Paul and Mayweather already gave up the blueprint and they're going to essentially look the same. And that's why Jake is excited to do this fight before the Canelo or before the Joshua fight was even on the table. It's a kind of a win-win for everybody. And as long as it's not a sanctioned boxing match, I don't see it as any different than going to a concert or a WWE match or a fucking roller derby. Let's just see what happens.
yeah, watch what you say because he might sue you. The guy who made his fame trolling people on YouTube and doing pranks, he takes himself very seriously. So don't cast any aspersions on him, Raheem. Well done. But just back to my point about Floyd, and I likened him with Jay-Z and Triple H and LeBron James and Tom Brady. And again, that seems so out of left field, but I got to flesh it out a little bit. And by the way, again, Floyd is the best fighter of my lifetime. Before people just, oh, you hate Floyd, and this became a big Floyd hate thing. And by the way, Floyd Mayweather, he paid the cost to be the boss. He beat a plethora of Hall of Famers, and then he did the McGregor thing. So Gervonta didn't put in the work Floyd did before he ultimately did his BS against Conor or whatever. But that aside, look, before Triple H became Triple H, you had Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, The Rock. Ever since him, the company actually has made more money than ever, right? But I think everybody would agree. even if you like wrestling, it's not doesn't have the mainstream relevancy and isn't as good as it was in those eras I mentioned previous, right? But they're making more money than ever. And Triple H has wore the belt more times than anybody who ever wore the belt. So all that. In football, Tom Brady, 7 Super Bowls, nothing you could say, greatest of all time. Before him, the game was more physical. I think everybody's complaining about how the rule change. There's a new rule change every year. A lot of those rule changes were brought about to protect people like Tom Brady. And same thing, football's making more money than ever, but you get people complaining it's not the game they want. And it's not just, the old back in my day thing. No, it's legitimate. The game isn't as physical, and physicality is part of what makes football football. To lessen some of the physicality is to lessen some of the game. And so, but he's a winner in 7 Super Bowls, and they're making more money than ever. But again, the product isn't as good as it once was. It's not. And LeBron James, right? Before him, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. Since him, still some great players, but same thing. People are going, guys change teams too often to try to build a super team. LeBron helped start that with the decision. He's got more points, more rebounds than anybody. But just like with Triple H, it's like you're not the GOAT. It doesn't matter how many accomplishments you have. You could pile them up, make people barf on it. He has control over the NBA in a way no other player has ever had control of it. Even Michael, even Kobe. And Jeannie Buss is selling the Lakers. Like, she's like, oh, this is what it is now? I'm out. Let me just sell the team instead of and then everybody in the sport aspect is saying everybody's a ball dominant guard or wing player now, 5 out. That was the LeBron James system. I mean, the 3-point shooting comes from the Suns and Steph Curry and all that, but the concept of one guy constantly running a pick and roll at the top of the key and spreading everybody out in the corners, that was the LeBron offense. So again, but the NBA is making more money than ever, but people aren't as satisfied with the game that they love as they once were. Jay-Z, before him, Tupac Shakur, Biggie Smalls, Rakim, etc. He sells more records than all of them. He wins more Grammys than all of them. But now you got, I don't know, Lil Yachty and a bunch of trash-ass rappers. The art form has just nosedived, objectively speaking. And then Floyd Mayweather. Before Floyd Mayweather, the mold to follow was Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson, Hearts on Fire, Rocky IV soundtrack type of shit. And now ever since him, this is what you get. Fighters who, it's all about the bag. I'll even sell out. I'll even low-key commit treason to the United States if it means I'm going to get the bag. Because anything but just fight for what I'm actually worth. I got to get the bag. So what I'm asking the audience is, if these guys are all such winners and they're all so great, we should all suck their dicks so much. Why is everything going to shit then? Maybe this ain't it.
Okay. I will remind you of something that is inconvenient.
Can I get it? They're all making more money than ever.
I will remind you of something that is inconvenient, but true. The eras in every field that you mentioned, and there were multiple fields that you mentioned, the one thing that every one of those different fields or genre of sport had in common in the era in which you spoke of was they were controlled by the owners. And the owners had undue leverage over the players and, air quotes, performers. What we demanded at the time was that these performers and athletes be freed from their slave-like contracts and undue allegiance to these owners without enough leverage to manipulate the game and their own careers independently. We said that was the problem. We were saying that was the problem when all these things were in their golden era. Everyone's seen the Vince McMahon documentary now. Well, that was the era that you're talking about. Everybody remembers the Bulls ownership and their beef with Michael Jordan and the front office win championship.
Right.
That was the golden era that you're talking about.
Checks and
Everybody
balances.
remembers, like, the Joe Namath all the way up to Joe Montana, and how the owners were putting football players on the field with broken everything, shooting them up with all kind of drugs, keeping them high, keeping them playing, making them go out there injured, and now they're crippled and dying at 55. But that was the golden era that you're talking about, when boxers were it just had to live and die by the promoter's decisions in the network, and the promoter had the entire power over a fighter's career. They created in these managers and were in bed with the fucking promoters. That's where the Muhammad Ali Act comes from, named after the man who was a victim of it. That was the golden era you're talking about. So the problem that is got you fired up inconveniently is that these players and performers and fighters now have more control over themselves and how the money is made. And they're saying, why not go get Jake Paul, Jake Davis type of money? Why not bring back Mike Tyson to fight Jake Paul? Why not have Ngannou fight Tyson Fury? Why not do any and everything I can do while people are paying attention to me to get as much money as I can, and let this legacy be damned? Let the golden era of whatever the fuck I'm in be damned, because at the end of the day, all I'm going to be left with is my money and my ex-wife, who will likely divorce me by the time I have to stay home after all
You're
this.
mostly going to take the titles. You're not even going to keep the titles, Shane.
I'm only going to keep half of this money anyway, because she's going to take half of it as soon as I retire. Like, they are not thinking the way that those athletes and performers were thinking when they had these golden eras, but they also don't, they are in a better position. So I get it, but it is the fighters and performers themselves who are actually more to blame. If Tank Davis prioritized setting that record straight, as far as he's concerned, with Lamont Roach over the bag that he can get with Jake Paul, then Lamont Roach would be the fight that we'd be talking about right now. It's Tank Davis who said, fuck that shit, fuck that legacy, fuck all these analysts talking about whether or not he deserves a rematch. I'm going to go get this money. And Jake Paul is like, why the fuck would I fight somebody who can, in fact, knock me out, or in this cash cow streak I got going, if I can pick better, and I can pick a 135-pound fighter and probably outsell Canelo Crawford and kind of thumb my nose at Turkey and Dana White in the process, why would I fight Anthony Joshua? You know what I mean? This is what it is, man. So, yes, of course you're right, but we got to point the finger also in the right direction. If these so-called legends of our day, if the icons of our era are not performing the way the golden era icons are, it's because they have more leverage and power to do what they want to do. And what we're seeing is what they want to do. And I don't know what Hulk Hogan might have done if he had that kind of freedom in the Vince McMahon era.
He never put guys over. He did have that freedom.
I mean, but you understand what I'm saying? Like,
no, absolutely. But I just push back on it with this.
I just don't know that those guys were better than these guys, and we can't necessarily say that those times were better than these times. We can say that that product was better than this product, but you know why? Because in that era, the people who were benefiting from the product were in charge, and now the product itself is in charge, and it wants to benefit from the people. So we're now paying the people, the product, to do what it wants to do, instead of the owners forcing the product to do what's best for the sport, because what's best for the sport is what's best for the owners. The owners are looking at this thing as what the NFL is and what boxing is and what WWE or whatever wrestling is, because they're all eating off the same tray. They're all rising tide does lift all boats in that regard. These fighters and shit are individualists, as they should be. But that's what's changed. That's what we got to live with. That's why my heart is unmendingly broken by Mayweather and McGregor.
But well, so you were asking why should he when he could get the bag, and I know like you're asking rhetorically, and I'm gonna make a lot of people roll their eyes at me right now because it's wrong, and that's what I'm getting at here is that it doesn't matter how much money you made. It doesn't matter that Tom Brady and Jay-Z and Floyd Mayweather told you it's okay. It's not okay. All right. And I'm here to let you know that. Okay. If nobody else, That's why I didn't take the Saudis' money to do that thing. And I'm getting offered a lot less than everybody else is, but it was plenty of money. And I said no. Why? I don't know, this corny thing that some people maybe once upon a time thought because of right and wrong. And beyond that, that's why I said it's a race to the bottom. It's like if you keep committing wrong after wrong, even though you're getting paid while you do it, there is an end of the road to that. And that's what I'm forewarning, not just about boxing and sports, but our country, our culture. Like you lose the plot. We're a capitalist country. I am, despite the long hair, I am not some college Marxist guy. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a leftist. I believe in capitalism. I believe more so than the other isms. None of them are perfect. But the point I'm saying is, like, yes, we are built on getting that money. Yes, that's what for the fuck America is. And I agree, you got to get the money. But it gets to a certain point where you can't just use that as an excuse to bypass right and wrong. And ultimately, if you keep doing it, there will be a check you have to cash, not a good one, at the end of the day for your ass, figuratively, and at some point, I believe, literally. And then last point too, Raheem, because I said all hands on deck, even us, the media, right? Myself included. I ran around for years. Who do you think wins, Crawford or Spence? All this speaking truth to power stuff is a little late on my end, a little bit, but I wanted to grow as a reporter in the field before I spoke on things. But even now, Raheem, this isn't Raheem's fault. Raheem wanted us to drop a video about Gervonta a month ago when he got into his domestic issues. And we weren't slandering Gervonta. We weren't shitting on him and kicking him, and all that. No, but we were being honest and trying to hold this man accountable because so many people around him don't want to hold him accountable because he's a lottery ticket, because he's a money ticket. And so many other media don't want to hold him accountable because you might get access revoked. And that's how you make a living. So even me included, right? Like, I don't want to seem like a piece of shit talking down on a man's personal life, call him a woman beater and all. Let's just sit on it. So even me, even us, not
It's
Rocky.
a race to the bottom of the rainbow. There is a pot of gold there. And what you determine as right or wrong is really only for you. The thing about it is that what is right or wrong for each individual fighter or performer can be determined by that individual. And what is upsetting you really is the social and societal norms that have moved the needle from where it was to where it is. That the value placed on certain ethic is no longer as weighty as the value placed on financial success. And because that is true, it is incumbent to most of these guys to get everything that they can as much as they can for as long as they can, any way they can, because they've seen when it's over, it's over. We will stop talking about them. We will stop calling them for interviews. Networks will stop signing deals with them. Promoters will stop signing fights for them. People will start ignoring them as soon as whatever value they have to us diminishes. And so once they realize, and this generation is realizing it much younger than past generations because they have more power to guide their own careers and make their own decisions, that it's all transactionary, that nobody loves you, that it's all fucking bullshit. And why should I do what Sean believes is right or wrong? Because fuck him. As soon as I stop fighting, he ain't coming here to nurse these kids or buy me, my wife, a car or hold my hand when she divorces me. Yes. I got to have all the fucking money I can get, and nobody cares anything about me unless I mean some money to them. That's the lesson.
Is that not a form of nihilism that we're buying into?
That is the reality that we're living. And I would find it hard to argue someone who presents me with that position, because I can say, man, I care about you, man. But I mean, listen, I've been doing this decades. Like the fighters I spoke to in the first 10 years that I covered boxing, when was the last time I spoke to those guys? You know what I mean? It's because they're not fighting anymore. It's because they don't drive numbers anymore. It's because I don't even think about them anymore unless one of them dies or somebody has a comeback fight or somebody gives me an opinion on a current fighter. That's the truth of it. I mean, that, and for people who live their life selling tickets, being admired, getting attention, being in the spotlight, to recognize that that is coming to an end and they've got to get everything they can get while the spotlight is shown on them is smart. That's what we would have told young athletes or young performers as wiser, older people, that they need to look after themselves. But at the same time, we want them to leave it all in the ring for us. We want them to pick the hardest fights and fight them when they're supposed to be fought. And we had a conversation, months ago about the lesson that Devin Haney learned after the Garcia fight. The lesson that we all really in this modern era learn one way or another, you're kind of on your own. That whole ethic of society holding you up or honoring you for the great valor you once showed or the great ethics that you once demonstrated, that is an era gone by. Yeah. If we want the kind of performance and the kind of decision-making from athletes and performers back that you're saying is right, then we got to treat them right. Anybody want to be a veteran today? Remember what it used to be like at some stage in American history to be a veteran and be honored and thank you for your service and free coffee, free beer.
To be fair, that's
give you a
that's
ride
why we never call fighters runners or demeaning terms. We keep it real, but yeah, the rest you're right.
I'm saying it's like you want to talk about the broader issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who wants to be a veteran today?
Yeah.
Not who wants to serve their country, not who wants to fight for freedom, not all that shit. I get it, but who wants to be a veteran today? Who wants to be the guy who's not anymore active duty? Who wants to be wounded and at war? Who wants to be relying on this government, no matter whether it's Democrat or Republican in charge, to be taking care of them and their family after they're injured overseas or on the front line? Nobody. Who remembers, very few people, what it used to be like for veterans? And I'm talking about, I don't remember it either. I'm too young. I'm too young for that. Like, that's pre-Vietnam. This thing has been happening.
The boxing equivalent. Who wants to be Meldrick Taylor, where he doesn't, he can't even speak right, and he's working he was once a gold medalist, pound for pounder. Now he's in Philadelphia at the grocery store, and his speech isn't right. Yeah. Can't we find a middle ground though? I think you're making a wonderful, like a great point. These guys, they get knocked out, they lose a fight, they get treated terrible by I know that's not right. That's not civility. But there has to be a happy medium here. That's what I'm trying to work us towards.
This is the happy medium. Let me put a button on this thing. What we are doing right now is the happy medium. I've got a news outlet that's independent of you. You've got a news outlet that's independent of me. They're both YouTube channels. Neither one of them are network shows, whatever. I've had opportunities here and there on network and on streaming platforms with big fights. You've been offered jobs, some that you turned down, some that you did. You work with Sean Porter, you guys, you know what I mean? You work, you find your ways, as I do, and neither one of us are prepared to give over our credibility or give over our objectivity to a different network that can then dictate to us what we say while we get the bag. So this is what turning down the bag looks like. And we've both had our opportunities to have the bag and to race to the bottom of the rainbow. And
I wish I would have cleaned up my office then so that this looks better.
And say what they want said and offer our credibility and offer the trust that fans have in us for being unbiased to some other network or promoter so we can shill and do the company line. That's what we decided not to do. So instead of doing that, we're doing this. The difference now, and what it was like when I was a younger reporter early in my career, and what I'm experiencing today with the audience, it's not just everyone we're pointing fingers at. You too, who are watching this and commenting on this, when guys like Sean and I get in trouble with a promoter or get banned by a fighter or a network because we're speaking the truth or because we're asking the uncomfortable question or we're raising an issue and talking about it frankly, do you come to our aid? Do you call the promoter or refuse to buy a pay-per-view or write in the comments, hey, where's Sean to tell? I need that commentary. I need that interview. We're not supporting this fighter if Sean doesn't get access. No, you troll. Sean's laughing because that shit sounds crazy these days, but that's how it used to be. I've been banned from everywhere. Now, I'm not saying everybody was on my side, but enough people were on my side that every place I got banned from, I got back into because I was speaking truth to power and saying the thing that was unpopular and talking against, at times, whatever the company line was and asking the questions that the fans wanted to know. And they had our backs. That's not what it is anymore. So this is in every genre, every type of business that we can think of. It's happening. It is what it is. So yeah, I would love for the fans to go back to being that. Then I could go back to having a more self-righteous position on what's right and what's wrong. But right now, we've constantly got to strike that balance between paying our own bills. You got a family,
I got 2 kids.
Your wife and 2 kids, and speaking the truth. This conversation we're having right now could likely put a wild hair up somebody's ass or upset one of the powers that be. And is anybody watching this show gonna come to our defense if we get banned from any said fight? Hell no. So we're the ones that gotta look after ourselves, and it's just up to us how bold we want to do and how much we want to risk while we do it.